Good morning. So, today's topic is city cinema, particularly in the Indian cinema context, and I'll be focusing on majorly on Hindi films, but also select films from other languages also. We are, my particular and specific interest in post-liberalization city cinema from India. Now, as we know, every major world city has a distinct culture, and different directors have captured a unique aspect of that culture in their films. Now, city culture is embodied in a city's language, its social beliefs, its the kind of people who walk the streets, the flâneurs, its food, its clothes, the mass media, popular culture, youth culture of a particular city. So, these are the factors that constitute a city. What is a city after all, if not its language, its culture, its food, its people? City cinema captures the iconography, the iconology of these films, and it represents what the city is through an interplay of oral visual signs, and thus translates urban landscapes into cultural spaces. Now, for example, in Woody Allen's Manhattan, the city is presented as a romanticized, glimmering, cosmopolitan world. If Woody Allen's New York is peopled with those interested in Bob Dylan, Tennessee Williams and Guggenheim Museum, the cinema or New York of Martin Scorsese thrives on often representing its underbelly, the mean streets. Okay, so we have to understand how different filmmakers capture different facets, different faces of a city. In cinema of the metropolis in India, shades of city culture is reflected through, through extreme Dharavi in Mumbai to Anasala area of Chennai, and from Lodi Gardens of Delhi to College Street of Kolkata, where cinema portrays the turbulence and energy, the attitude of people, their desires and possibilities, interpersonal relationships and facets of urban angst. Now, think a film like Raj Kapoor's Sri 420. I know I am supposed to talk to you about post-liberalization cinema, but here is a connect. Okay, there is going to be some kind of a relationship between Sri 420, which starts with a road sign that is Bombay 420. You know, it's a very literal telling of what city is. 420 is a very Indian slang, which means someone who is a kind of a manipulator, a kind of a cheat. Yeah, so Bombay 420, everyone who inhabits the city space has got to be a city person, is colloquially speaking a 420 person, okay, a fraud in other words. So, as Raju, played by Raj Kapoor, he heads towards his city of dreams. He sees this road sign Bombay 420, and now a well-meaning character later on advises Raju that this is Bombay and truth comes dime a dozen, but there are 420 ways of making money by deceit. Now, from this point I would flash forward to the 90s, post-liberalization, post-liberalized period, when you get to see a movie like Raju Ban Gaya Gentleman starring Shah Rukh Khan, where a street performer played by Nana Patekar wants another Raju. Now, Shah Rukh is also Raju in this film, and what does he tell him? That wait till you learn what Bombay really is, as you don't know what Bombay is. The idea is that again, for a naive, well-meaning, wide-eyed innocent like yourself, Bombay is no place. You don't really know what Bombay is. In order to make it big in Bombay, in other words, you have to be corrupt, a fraud. Now, what is being discussed here is the essence or the spirit of Mumbai. Now, at one place it is also a place, it can be seen as a place that welcomes fast and discards faster. Now, I would like to draw your attention to F.W. Murnau's Sunrise, which also played on these binaries about the city and the rural, where everything good is represented. City represents everything that is evil, and the small town or the rural represents everything that is good. So, the binaries. Okay. So, there is a femme fatale in Murnau's Sunrise, and there is a good sacrificing wife in the rural space. So, this is what we have been generally told. Things are although changing now. So, it has been, it is known that the real sights of Bombay are the streets themselves. We generally talk about the great streets of Bombay. So, there is a film called Life in Metro, 2007 Anurag Basu movie, which is a contemporary take on Mumbai and portrays the sounds and silences of Mumbai, along with the much talked about multicultural ethos and plurality of the city. Now, amidst attempts at suicide and disappointments and tears and heartbreaks and anguish and corporate life, the tussle between corporate life and family life, Life in a Metro is probably a film that includes almost every element of Mumbai, and although it touches upon the negative aspects of modern life in a city, it also ends on a hopeful note and with a token of promise, or the tone of promise is always there. Now, Mumbai is a summation that is bigger than its people, but the film tries to tell us that greatness stems from its people. Popular genre of cinema of Mumbai usually traces the life of an outsider, an innocent whose quest for livelihood or truth would often end in a tragedy, as in Diwar, as in Nayakan or Parinda and Hatyar. Also Agnipath and Ram Gopal Verma's trilogy of organized crime, Satya, Company and Sarkar. Now, parallel cinema of Mumbai, on the other hand, is stamped with the mark of realism as well as on the world of the urban poor and the lower middle class. There is squalid lives and fantasies as seen in Meera Nair's Salam Bombay, or more recently in Danny Boyle's Slumdog Millionaire. So, these films are conspicuous for depiction of the stark contrast between the everyday lives of the protagonists and their dreams of a better life. So, what I am trying to say is that right from the cinema of maestros such as Bimal Roy and Guru Dutt to Raj Kapoor and Satyajit Ray, city has been a significant space of random encounters, violent crimes, urban surveillance and ambiguous morality and sexuality. I would urge you to watch Satyajit Ray's Mahanagar in this connection. And city cinema often represents the emerging social space and public sphere of modern urbanism. A city and its language are joined at the seams. Street and dialect of Bombay or Mumbai, popularly known as the Bombaya language, perhaps is the best known of cinematic language from India. This dialect was first heard and appreciated for its authenticity in Guru Dutt's Aar-Paar. The variety and composite of Konkani and Marathi and Hindi and English soon became a staple of several films with Mumbai as a backdrop. Gangster films such as Agnipath and Satya and Company, also Sarkar, Shootout at Lokhandwala, they have made use of this peculiar brand of language. Now, at this point, I would like to draw your attention to a clipping from Munna Bhai MBBS. Please watch this particular scene, and then we will talk about, you will understand what I am trying to tell you. So, I am sure you enjoyed that particular scene. Now, as you know, the Mumbaiya dialect in recent times has never been as well captured as in Munna Bhai series. So, expressions such as Vaat Lag Gayi Mamu and Jadoo Ki Jhappi, etc., they went on to become part of our national vocabulary, our collective lexicon. The sequel to Munna Bhai MBBS, that is Lage Raho Munna Bhai, which was released in 2008, popularized terms such as Gandhigiri and Dimag Mein Chemical Locha. What I am trying to tell you is that the Mumbai Tapori or street slang used in the film has become a sort of style statement. It is amazing that a word mamu, which is a typical Mumbai slang, has become popular in the remotest corner of India. Now from Bombay we move on to Delhi. Delhi is another metropolitan city with a peculiar blend of languages. The Urdu language, the Urduized or Urdu laden language is prominent in Amir Khan's Fana, where the terrorist protagonist masquerades as a poet and a tourist guide before he strikes. This is a stark contrast with the language of Dibakar Banerjee's Oye Lucky Lucky Oye, which is also set in Delhi, where the characters are seeped in their local milieu of chawls in Delhi and speak of the dialect peculiar to that domain, complete with slang and jargons. In both Munna Bhai and Oye Lucky Lucky Oye, the milieu is an integral feature and shapes the behavior and attitude of the people. I would like you to watch this particular sequence from Oye Lucky Lucky Oye in order to appreciate a peculiar dialect of Delhi. I am sure you enjoyed the scene. Now, from streets, let us talk about landmarks of a city. And as you know, India Gate of Delhi is another potent symbol of nationalism and patriotism. It was designed by the British architect Latins to commemorate the names of those who died in the First World War. Now, flash forward to a film like Rang de Basanti, when a group of carefree young people who are in the process of enacting roles of freedom fighters in a documentary salute to India Gate. There is a particular sequence. We realize that as these people delve deeper into their characters, the real life gradually takes over the real life, and soon the actors start identifying with the patriots. India Gate becomes now a spectator and a character in itself, when a group of peaceful protesters march towards the war memorial and are brutally beaten by the police. This scene demonstrates how past merges into the present and how temporal boundaries are eroded as state atrocities on innocent citizens are carried out by a succession of repressive measures. So strong was the impact of Rang de Basanti on the psyche of Indian masses that post its release, youth activism took to streets to protest on public interest issues, and there were a number of cases where young people got together and started protesting in front of India Gate. Again, from Bombay and Delhi, let us move on to Hyderabad. And Hyderabad Blues, Nagesh Kukunoor's film, is a prime example of how city is represented in all its glory. So, this is one film where the notion of city as a mindscape has been effectively reinforced. The protagonist of Hyderabad Blues, which was released in 1998, is Varun, played by Nagesh Kukunoor, and the plot revolves around his visit home after 12 years in the USA. It is partly autobiographical, and here Nagesh Kukunoor establishes the theme with the emblematic shot at the outset, where the narrative protagonist, full of idyllic thoughts of his hometown, is rudely shaken out of his reveries on a typical crowded Indian road, and we are sutured into the narrative as they identify with Varun's gaze, surprised, absolutely astonished gaze falling upon a herd of buffaloes blocking the traffic. So, welcome to Hyderabad. Yeah. The vitality of Hyderabad Blues is marked by the codes it uses. A code, as you know, is explained as a sort of system or a structure used to decode a work of art. It is defined as any system of assumptions, beliefs, ideology or stereotypes that is relied on or alluded to in a film or other works of art, and all this can be called a code. For example, we have the code of the English language, the cultural codes regulating the behavior of the protagonist, the codes of music, the codes of narrativity, and so on. Since codes and conventions change according to the ideological climate of the time, it is significant to note the linguistic code switching in the film, clearly reflecting the changing temper of the late 90s. So, it is against this backdrop that you should be watching Hyderabad Blues. Now, gangster cinema and most gangster films are set in Bombay. So, they are a very important subgenre of crime films and are of particular interest in the context of the urban, because gangster films present us with an alternative topography, an alternative community, and an alternative urban consciousness. There are several films that represent this, most importantly and most significantly in recent times. Again, I would like you to watch films such as Satya and Company, and also Shootout at Lokhandwala. Now, we also have a film like Madhur Bhandarkar's Traffic Signal. It's a 2006 movie where the traffic signal becomes as emblematic of their lives as the invisible green and red lights that maneuver mankind from anguish to atonement in the cycle of life, which we call existence. Bhandarkar's microcosmic view of the street people is cluttered with characters who swish by creating their own little spaces in the bustle of the street hustle. A flourishing industry exists at the signals, and that is what Madhur Bhandarkar tells us, and those who engineer and run the empire include gangsters and politicians. The plot is stationed at a traffic signal. The characters are shabby to look at, they wear tattered clothes, and the lingo they speak is outright pedestrian, coarse and uncouth. The director presents an array of street characters such as the orphan little boy Tsunami, the prostitute Noori, the junkie street hustler, and illustrates the strangely ironical relationship that grows between passengers in posh cars and these fringe people at street signals who eke out a living by lying to their destiny. From here we move on to down south, that is, and particularly to Chennai. Almost perfect example of city cinema is Rajiv Menon's Kandukondain, which tells the story of modern migrants to post-liberalized Chennai and how it represents the interaction and movement between rural and urban sensibilities. The film is the story of two sisters, loosely based on Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility. One sister is serious and pragmatic, the other romantic and idealistic. They are forced to leave their ancestral home in their rural small town, and then they move to Chennai and struggle to get by on almost nothing. So, filmmakers have always shown the two evergreen landmarks of Chennai, the Chennai Central Station and the LIC, Life Insurance Corporation of India building, to introduce the city and to show that the story has moved from the village or any other city to the bustling metropolis of Chennai or the erstwhile Madras. The scene reinforces these two edifices further in the psyche of most people who are new to the city. So, Kandukondain presents a mosaic of images of the so-called Singara Chennai or beautiful Chennai, from music schools of Mylapore to the IT office on Gemini Road and Gemini Circle, and from Benz showroom at Anna Salai to Sarvana Bhavan restaurant Chennai. All these things are there in Kandukondain. Chennai, of course, in this film is clean, neat and aesthetic, and implements a bourgeois utopia, the dream of urban beauty and success in a post-liberalized India. Shankars Boys, a 2003 movie, is yet another exemplar of how post-liberalization Indian cinema symbolizes the aspirations of the so-called Generation X. Boys narrates the story of 4 young men in college and traces their ambitions, loves and relationships. Among other things, the film is remarkable for its understanding of the anatomy of Chennai. Images of bustling Ranganathan street and Mylapore are juxtaposed with more tony localities of Adyar and Spencer Plaza Mall of Annasalai. So, where does all this lead to? We have to understand that India has changed considerably during the last 2 decades, and this shift is reflected in the post-liberalization Indian cinema. City in Indian cinema provides a platform for a special negotiation between people of different communities, groups and socio-economic backgrounds. The spate of films reflecting the city in its various manifestations is on the rise, as we witness the images of metropolis in films such as Black and White, Corporate, Chini Kam, Monsoon Wedding, Page 3, Guru, Delhi 6, Dev D, Yuva, A Wednesday, Vyomkesh Bakshi and many more. So, a study of this genre is a particular relevant addition to the increasing interest in cultural and film studies. So, thank you very much. We will meet for our next class soon.